Egyptians were part and parcel of the war on Gaza. And I have evidence that when the war was being waged against Gaza, the Egyptians were actually defending the Israeli point of view in much of their conversations with the Hamas delegation that was invited to Cairo. Not only that, the Egyptians were advising the Israelis that because the Egyptian mediators were not getting much out of Hamas, why don't you hit them harder? Why don't you cause more casualties? Because probably this will bring pressure to bear on Hamas. This is from the people who were in the meeting, in the talks in Egypt. And take all the statements that we've heard from Mubarak, or from Abu al-Ghait, his foreign minister, or from other officials in the Egyptian government. They all prove that Egypt wanted Hamas to be defeated. And you know what Sarkozy reported, that Mubarak told him Hamas should never be allowed to win this war. The other accomplice in this is Mahmoud Abbas, and even more than an accomplice. Mahmoud Abbas and his Ramallah authority, which is truly executively led by Salam Fayyad. Salam Fayyad, a man who is on the payroll of the Americans, and who is as honest, as sincere, as loyal as you can get in implementing the first article of the roadmap, which is a security cooperation with the Israelis in the West Bank. It was supposed also to take place in Gaza, but he hasn't had the chance. And I hope he will never have the chance to do the same in Gaza as he did in the West Bank. The Palestinian Authority in Ramallah and the Egyptians simply wanted Hamas finished off. If not finished off, completely disarmed, weakened, and they wanted to come back to Gaza. On the day the Israelis bombed the police stations, remember the images we saw on television? All these policemen lying, cut into pieces on the ground. That day, 4,000 men, led by Muhammad Dahlan, were in Al-Arish, on the borders of Gaza, waiting to be allowed into Gaza by the Egyptian authorities. And that day, the day of the bombing, mysteriously, the Egyptians unexpectedly opened the Rafah crossing. They did not allow anybody out of Rafah, but they opened the Rafah crossing in order to allow the 4,000 men who were trained in Jordan and other places in order to come back and fill what they believed was the vacuum created by the destruction of the Hamas government, the Hamas authority, and the dissemination of the police force. When news of the dissemination of the police force spread to Dahlan's loyals in Gaza, they took to the streets, started taking action in order to take control from the traffic, from controlling the traffic to running affairs, in order to enable Dahlan and his 4,000 men to come through Rafah. But Hamas had a plan to deal with this emergency. They immediately took control and finished what was likely to be a fifth column plot from within, enabling those who were preparing to come from outside to come in. This is a very sad reality. The third party that played a sinister role in this is the Saudi royal family. Throughout, the Saudis knew about this plan. They kept quiet. They agreed that we must remove this obstacle from our way, because Hamas, to the Saudis, to the Egyptians, and to Ramallah, seemed to be a formidable obstacle that had to be removed from the way. And you saw what the Saudis have done so far. They've undermined any attempt to bring the Arabs together, whether through a summit or whatever. Even when they went to the UN Security Council, they played a sinister role or a bad role. always undermining the campaign to express solidarity and support and to bring the war to an end at an early stage. Believe me, if it were only for, if Israel was the only opponent of Hamas, Israel would never have dared to wage the war to start with. But they waged the war and they used weapons and ammunition that we probably never expected a human to use against another human being. Hitler in the Holocaust sent the Jews to be burnt. In this Holocaust, the Israelis opened hell from the skies and from the sea and from the ground. White phosphorus used against the Palestinians was burning people alive. Yesterday I was watching Al Jazeera, hearing testimonies of medical doctors and experts who had come from everywhere in the world in order to help the Palestinians. They talk about injuries and wounds that they never saw before. What sort of weaponry, what sort of ammunition the Israelis were using. Despite 22 days, nearly 22 days of hell opened on the people of Gaza, total destruction, indiscriminate killing. And by the way, it was a deliberate indiscriminate killing. A deliberate indiscriminate killing in order to force Hamas to surrender. That Hamas should have come to the point of saying, oh, we cannot take this anymore. The children, the women, the people, how can we allow this to continue? Or, alternatively, they were hoping that the people of Gaza would rise against Hamas and would do something. Of course, none had happened. The Israelis failed in achieving any of their earlier declared objectives. Now, the Israelis are professional liars, compulsive liars by nature. And this is the nature of Zionism. The nature is, it's a project based on a lie. That this is a land without a people for a people without a land. Right from the start, it was a lie. And it continued to build its glory on lies. And you saw in that press conference where Ehud Olmert and Barak stood in order to lie again to the Israeli people. And the Israeli people must understand that there must come a time when they know what their politicians are doing to them. They're lying to them. They're leading them to the slaughterhouse. It is their politicians that are causing so much hatred and are destroying every single bridge that we thought existed at the time in order to bring about peaceful coexistence in the region. Olmert stood there lying and boasting and saying, we've accomplished all our objectives and more. What objectives and what more? Hamas is still there. It's intact. Its government continued to function despite all the difficult circumstances. And by the way, before the end of December, by the 30th of December, every single member of the government in Gaza, 50,000 people, received his or her salary in full. Can you just think about it? How a government under such fire can manage to pay salaries to all its employees, whether those who support Hamas or those who did not support Hamas. Not only that, the rockets that Hamas had, its ability to manufacture, its ability to repair, its ability to produce more, has not in the least been impaired. Hamas is still capable of making rockets, of making Qassams in particular, and Hamas is still capable of bringing in weapons and ammunitions.